Hi guys, it is Aoife from Fred VC Died Laughing and I'm here with another weekly wrap up. So as you guys can see, I'm actually in a different location than I normally am, and that is actually because I moved out about a month ago from my parents' house. So this is my new room, just closer into Dublin city centre, and I have still been kind of choosing to do my wrap-ups at home because obviously my bookshelves and stuff are there. There'd be no point in me moving all my books over into this room because there's just no room. So I do have like my nicely decorated bookshelves at home, but I just don't always have the time. I'm not always like ready for filming or have enough books read when I'm over at home. Maybe the once or twice a week I do go back over. So today I am going to be filming here, and unfortunately I do not have my pretty bookshelves behind me, but I have some great books to talk about, so I'm going to start off with that. So the first book I'm going to talk about is an audiobook I finished this week, and it was My Patients and Other Animals by Suzy Fincham-Gray. This is just a memoir. Suzy Fincham-Gray is a veterinarian. She first did her studies in England. She is English, but then she eventually moved over to, I think it was, I can't remember if it's Philadelphia or Baltimore. And then she eventually went to the East Coast and was a vet there, and she's just kind of talking in this book about different patients that she sees, different cases that she had to work on, ones that really affected her, having her own pets and having to deal with the sickness of her own pets throughout her life as well. And for the most part I did quite enjoy this, but there was something about it that I didn't quite connect with it as much as I thought I would, because obviously like animal medicine is something that really interests me. It's something that I always thought I wanted to do, but unfortunately just the way my studies went, it just wasn't something that I was able to do in the end. But it's always something that I thought in another life I would be a vet, and so I was really interested in hearing like a vet's own memoirs, a little bit like kind of maybe a James Herriot-esque. Now this is a lot more serious than James Herriot, but there are like some nice stories in here, but I kind of just felt that Suzy Fincham-Gray was very clinical a lot of the time. Now she did narrate this book herself, but even the way she told her story sometimes and her descriptions of owners and pets and how she approached some problems, like she even said herself at some points there were some times where she saw the disease or she saw the sickness and she didn't see the pet, like she didn't see the dog, she didn't see the animal that was beloved by its owners. She only saw the illness that it had or the problem that it was portraying, like when she had to figure it out. At one point, like, that is a good thing. You want the vet to be able to just really focus on making your pet better, but at the same time I would never want my dog's vet to look at my dog and not see a dog that is absolutely loved by her family. And as I said last week, Luna was really sick just a couple of weeks ago, so I was really kind of in that position where my dog had recently been sick, and I was just thinking I would not want my vet to be looking at Luna like this. And I felt like she was just quite cold sometimes towards owners, especially when it came to maybe being able to pay for things, because everyone knows that sometimes pet bills and vet bills can be really expensive, just like medical bills, and sometimes it's a real struggle. And there were times where she really had a lot of frustration with owners not being able to pay or being hesitant in things, and there just wasn't as much understanding there sometimes as I think there should have been. So yeah, so overall I gave this like a 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it, but I just felt like it was just lacking a little bit of warmth at times. It was just a little bit too cold for me. The next book I read was actually a play, and it was Hamlet by William Shakespeare, and I read this because I actually went to see a performance of Hamlet on Thursday in the Gay Theatre in Dublin, and Ruth Negga, the actress, played Hamlet, and it was absolutely wonderful. So I had only ever read Merchant of Venice and King Lear. Both of those I studied in school, so I've never actually read Hamlet, so I really quickly decided I would give it a go. And what I did was I downloaded a free copy of it on my iBooks on my phone, and then I also found a BBC radio adaptation of it on YouTube, and I read the play along on my phone while listening to the radio adaptation, and it really helped me understand what was going on in the play, and the emotions and the tone of the actors kind of really like let me know the feel of different scenes and what I should be feeling with different scenes. And it was a really enjoyable way to take in Shakespeare, and I'm really happy that I did it that way, and I'm really happy I read the play and had an understanding of the play and what was going on before I saw it performed as well, because I'm not sure if I would have really appreciated everything if I hadn't have already had an understanding of it. So yeah, that was just really good. I gave it like a 4 out of 5 stars, and if I ever read more Shakespeare in the future, it's definitely what I'm going to do, which is to read along and listen to a radio adaptation of it, because yeah, I just really enjoyed that way of taking it all in. The next book I read was Lord of Emperors by Gavriel, and this is the second book in the Sailing to Sarantium duology. So in the first book, which is Sailing to Sarantium, we meet this mosaicist called Crispin, and he is basically called to kind of creates something for the emperor of this land, and this is kind of like a historical fantasy. The land is very, very similar to what I would think maybe the Roman Empire could have been, and there are a lot of like political intrigues in this book, and you're just learning kind of the ins and outs of the political system, I guess, and you're learning about the emperor and the men around him and the women around him and the women around the empress, and it's really hard to explain. I just don't really know how to explain this book. I did really enjoy it, but at the same time I feel like nothing actually happened in it. Like, not that much actually happens in this book. It's just like, it rambles on a little bit, but I did really enjoy it. So I gave it like a 3.5 stars as well. And I did enjoy it. I just can't really explain what happens in it. The next book I read was a novella. It was Gods of Risk by James S.A. Corey. This is 2.5 in the Expanse series. And this one actually follows a nephew of Bobby Draper who appeared in the second book, Caliban's War. This one was actually just quite like a nothing kind of novella. Like some novellas you get and they give a lot to the story, where this one I just feel like it didn't. I don't really see the point of it. I think the main point of this book was really just to show maybe a normal side of one of the planets in this. So it shows this guy, he's about 15, 16 years old, he is on Mars, he's studying, he's kind of waiting for this kind of placement which basically will tell him what he's going to do for the rest of his life, and he's waiting around for this, and he's just like this really angry teenager. Like, he doesn't really have any reasons to be angry. Like, his parents love him, his parents are well off, he's not like extremely poor or anything, he's very clever, but for some reason he's just angry at the world. He is sullen. He is creating drugs like to get extra money on the side, even though he doesn't really need this money. He ends up getting in trouble because of this, and then he ends up needing his aunt, who's Bobby, to kind of help him out in a rough situation. That's kind of, I think this story was really just made to help us see a side of this world where everything wasn't death and destruction all the time, and things weren't on this like time limit of, you know, the world is going to explode in any minute. And I just felt like, yeah, I did enjoy seeing this like more normal side of the world, but at the same time I just don't think it really added anything for me, so I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was the book I got from Neck Alley. It is Every Colour of You by Amelia Mandeville. If you guys know the Mandeville sisters YouTube channel, you guys will know Amelia. She is a YouTuber. This is her book coming out. And I decided I would finally pick it up and read it, because I just wanted, especially after the last few books, I think I just wanted something light and something contemporary, and something I knew I could read quite fast, and this definitely was that for me. So this is about Tristan and Zoe. Tristan has just come out of hospital, and he is suffering from a really bad case of depression. His dad has died recently and he is just not coping very well. And he definitely just he just doesn't want to be alive. Like, he really is struggling in just everyday life. And then he meets Zoe, and Zoe is like someone who basically is walking happiness in a way. Like, she wants to make everyone around her happy. She wants to make everyone see how good life is and how much life is worth living, and she decides that she's going to be friends with Tristan, and she's going to try and help him, and she's going to try and bring a little bit of colour back into his life, and we just see their friendship kind of evolve, and eventually romantic feelings do come into it, but romance isn't actually a big deal in this plot. It's definitely more to do with the friendship, and it's definitely more centered around Tristan's struggles to just allow himself to live and allow himself to enjoy life. And I did, for the most part, really enjoy this. I do think that Zoe was a little bit of like a manic pixie dream girl, but the thing is, in other books where there have been manic pixie dream girls, it's always the male character has projected that onto the female character, such like in a lot of John Green books, or even in like say in The Fault in Our Stars, Hazel kind of projected that onto Gus, where with this one Zoe has projected it onto herself. She has kind of made herself a manic pixie dream girl in a way, and I thought that was kind of an interesting like spin on it, and because of that I didn't dislike it as much as maybe I would have disliked it if it had been Tristan projecting it onto Zoe. And as well with Zoe, there was something about Zoe that just really felt very familiar to me, because I feel like I have written about characters in the past, especially when I was younger. I've written about characters that were just really similar to her, so when I was reading her I was seeing almost like a weird distorted reflection of my own writing, and it was weird and enjoyable, and I kind of felt like I knew Zoe already, but at the same time I knew that if I knew Zoe in real life, she would annoy the shit out of me. Like, she is just so joyful and so happy, and I just don't think, like, I myself just don't think that everyone can be like that all the time. And there are moments where Zoe does crack, but for the most part I was like, she would just annoy me so much if I knew her in real life. But for the sake of the story, she was great. I did really enjoy her. And I really enjoyed the fact that this had a real emphasis on male depression and not, I mean, obviously any depression, any mental illness depiction is really, really good, but I think male depression in particular is something that you know, we're trying to get people to talk about more, we're trying to get men to talk about their feelings more, and I feel like having Tristan really struggle through this book and really kind of, you know, we're reading his thoughts and we're reading the struggles he's going through, I think are really, really important. I think that sometimes Zoe got overshadowed by Tristan as well, because Tristan's problems were like the main problems in this book, so yeah, there was that, but overall I think this was a really strong debut novel, and I gave it like a 3 to a 3.5 stars, maybe like a 3.25. I know I don't really give 3.25, so it's probably 3 to 3.5 stars. But I did really, really enjoy it. I just think I think maybe I would have enjoyed it more if I was younger. But I will definitely be reading more of Amelia's writing in the future, and again I do think it's a really important book. It has a lot of really great representation, not just mental illness, but there's also, Zoe has 2 dads, and then she also has friends who are queer, so yeah, so there is a lot of representation. There's a lot of conversations that the characters have that are really, like, the only way I can describe them is that they're really woke. Like, these are really woke characters. They are aware of the world, they are very aware of you know, that people don't always just fit inside this box. They know that, and I just really enjoyed the conversations they had around all that as well. So yeah, 3.5 stars, really did enjoy it, and I do recommend it. The last book I finished so far this week is The Queens of Fennbirn by Kendare. This is a novella to the Three Dark Crowns quartet, because there is a 4th book coming out next year, so this is kind of technically like 0.5 in the book, but I think you should probably read it after the 3rd one, I guess, or after the 2nd one maybe. So there's 2 different novellas in this. There is a novella which is about the queens that we know, Mirabella, Arsinoe and Catherine, and it's about them growing up when they were younger and eventually being split apart, and how they were kind of brainwashed into forgetting each other by the families that adopt them, and eventually obviously they have to, in the book, they have to fight each other where only one will survive, and we're seeing the struggles that they all have with being torn apart from each other, and the emotions they go through, and the training they end up having when they were younger. And I really, really enjoyed that. I just loved seeing that glimpse of them as they were younger, because we were seeing them as 16, 17-year-olds in the books now, but seeing them as they were younger and seeing those flashbacks was just really enjoyable, and I really enjoyed it. And then the 2nd book takes place like 500 years before our queens, and it's about this queen called the Oracle Queen, and we know that this Oracle Queen ended up being locked away, and she has this like terrible story around her, and we are figuring out with this novella the real story, and I loved this one. This was just like real like history into this world, history into the queens, and I could read an entire book with just like stories about past queens of this world, because I just find them really, really interesting, and I really enjoyed this one. I think this is just these novellas are the type of novellas I love. These are the ones I want, the ones that really bring something to the story and bring something extra. I don't want something that is just kind of like a side piece, like a piece of ketchup on the side like of the plate. I want something that really seasons the story, like really, really does. I feel like these really did that for me, so I gave it like a really strong 4.5 out of 5 stars. Would really recommend it if you like this, if you like these series, to pick up this novella. I think you would really, really enjoy it, because I loved it. And then the last book I have been reading, I'm not finished yet, but I'm going to try and get a good chunk of it done today, is Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor. This is the 2nd book in Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. You guys know I read Daughter of Smoke and Bone at the start of the year. It's my first book I read this year. Eventually I've gotten onto the 2nd one. It's taken me quite a long time, like literally 10 months, but I'm really enjoying this so far. I am like quarter of the way through, and I'm hoping to get at least more than halfway through by tonight, so yeah, really enjoying this one so far. Everything I've read this week, please let me know what you guys think of the books I have read, leave any of your comments down below, and also a big thank you to you guys for making me get to 2,000 subscribers, because I finally hit the 2,000 subscriber milestone this week, and I'm absolutely delighted. Thank you guys so much for subscribing, thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for commenting, and I will bring you some more videos soon, and I'll see you then.